So, welcome back to another episode. And today I wanted to talk about what it was like growing up in the 1980s and being into anime and joining a club and being a part of all that. It's very, very different to now. And that's why I wanted to make the episode, is because the anime scene now is a very healthy scene. It has changed quite a lot, and I really wanted to cement this and talk about this because a lot of my generation, I found, is really has been shamed. Really, when you grew up in the 80s, you were condemned for liking anime. You were looked at as a heretic, a strange, weird nerd who should get back into their parents' basement and never come out again. That's how you felt. So it was very, very underground. And oh my god, it's so funny how much we were shamed. And I felt that I'm one of the few people from my generation who doesn't mind coming onto a camera and talking about all of this stuff. And I've been waiting for other people to do it for so long, and they never have. So I'm like, well, I guess I have to talk about it, or it will be one of those things that is forgotten in time. And that's the thing that I don't want to see happen. And as I say, I grew up with Star Blazers and seeing all these, Japanese shows on TV, and I was like, what is this stuff? And there wasn't a term anime back then. It was Japanese cartoons. Oh, these are from Japan. I didn't know the term. There was another term in the 80s that's really embarrassing. Japanimation. People called it Japanimation, and even when I was still getting into anime, I was like, I don't like that name. It sounds so American tacked on. It was, and I don't know, an embarrassing terminology. I was never a big fan of it, but I was watching these shows. I watched Robotech. I discovered Galaxy Express 999. I was so interested in this stuff, and nobody else I knew in Vancouver knew about it or was interested in it. I didn't know where to go and get books or anything like that. I'd go to a comic book store. Maybe every 4 or 5 months a book would come in and it'd sell out. It'd just be sold out because people were fanatical of, other fans. Oh my god, there's an anime book. They bought it, it was gone. There wasn't the merchandising like there is now in here, compared to Japan. Japan was, anime was always acceptable, but over here, it was a very new thing, and it was only coming out on, television, and they were changing it quite a lot. It was getting altered, like Robotech, so you weren't able to see the original shows. But so I was really interested in this stuff, but I couldn't find it. I couldn't talk to anybody about it, and it was very, very frustrating. And that's why I spent so much time drawing it. It was the only way I could get my enthusiasm out. And one day, and I've told this story before in my Bubblegum Crisis episode, I went to a comic book convention, and at the back there was this little room, a little dark cave room with a table in front of it, and there was a couple of guys sitting there, and they had some anime art books and a little bit of merchandise, not very much, but it was the most I'd ever seen on one table. Isn't that crazy? And we're talking 1988, and I was like, wow. And I talked to these guys, and I owe these guys still a lot to this day. They took the time to talk to a little kid. I must have been maybe 13, 14 years old at the time, but they took the time to talk to me about it. And I'm like, oh my god, you're into anime? And they're like, yeah. And the anime scene was so unusual back then that even they were excited to talk to me and that I knew about it. And I was enthusiastic about it because I had discovered other shows. I'd heard about, I'd found out about a show called Megazone and all that kind of stuff. And so they're like, hey, we're doing this screening. And I went in the back room and I saw, that sounds bad, doesn't it? I went in the back room and I saw Project A-ko. And it changed my life. It did. It enthused me so much. I couldn't believe what the Japanese were getting. The awesome, it was just, I'd never seen anything like this on American TV or Canadian TV. Nothing even remotely as cool. And I was like, I guess I was so blown away by how cool the Japanese were doing animation and it was adult cartoons. They were bloody, there was nakedness in them. Sometimes people would have sex. It was like, oh my God, this happens in a cartoon? I was watching Bugs Bunny, as they say. This is mind-changing. So I was really enthusiastic. And how it ended up happening is that I said to these guys, oh wow, like I'd really love to be, like part of the club. But the club, at the time, I'm in Vancouver. The club was in Victoria, a small little island off Vancouver. And I couldn't just quite go there. You had to catch a ferry. It was a big thing. You have to get, it was out of my spectrum. I couldn't do it, which is unfortunate. But they gave me, and this was a thing, they gave me their newsletter, their fanzine that they would do. And it was called the JAC, the Japanese Animation Club. And it was just, at the time, the anime clubs were tied to the science fiction clubs. It was like everything was kind of related. So if there was the science fiction club in all of Canada and that you said, hey, we want to have a club as well, there was almost a way to do all of that stuff. This is before the internet. So I was given this fanzine here and I was like, wow, what is this? And I looked through and they were talking about the club. And they would have, get-togethers. There was one anime club. And everybody would get together and they'd share tapes and they'd watch the latest stuff that they were able to get from Japan. This was a very difficult time. And they would do little writings and some people knew the plots of certain shows, so they'd write the plots. This is great here. Right here, this is the club list of what the club had in the way of shows. So this is kind of interesting. So they would have a show like Area 88. And they'd say they have acts 1, 2, and 3. And it'd say excellent Japanese, meaning the copy was excellent, but it was only in Japanese. And then it'd say some things like very good English dubbed. And you're like, oh, so the copy is very good, it's English dubbed. So and they didn't have that much. There wasn't that much in the club catalog. But to me, none of this stuff was on TV. It was like, wow, you have these shows? And so I said to them, oh, wow, I'd love to get some of these shows. And they're like, well, I'll tell you what, if you send us some tapes and some postage money, we'll take the stuff for you, send you back tapes. This is what the clubs did for their members. And so I was like, oh, sign me up. And you'd pay I think it was $5 to $10. And you get their fanzines for free. And you get to go to the meetings and hang out. And so it was a good deal. And all that money went into printing and to, acquiring more stuff. It was a really, really good little club. And I tell you, these guys were awesome. But the thing that was in my way was everybody had VHS recorders. I had a beta machine because my parents always had to do something different. They just didn't know enough about technology. They'd walk into a store and the guy's like, beta's the future. And they're like, oh, we'll get beta. And they wouldn't talk to me or talk to anybody else. And we come home, we have a beta player, which I wasn't, unenthusiastic about. But when I went to the club and I said, hey, cool. They're like, I send them beta tapes and the guy writes me a letter back. He's like, just so you know, we don't have a beta recorder, but we have a friend who does. So I'll get him to dub the tapes for you. They're called dubbing tapes, copying the tapes. And so, so what happened then is, and I would go to my mailbox every day waiting for these tapes. I can't tell you what it was like coming home from school in 88, 89 and getting a tape in the mail. I would remember walking down the road, and I'd see my house, and I could see the mailbox from far. I could see it was just up, and there's this little yellow package, and I'd freak out, fuck yeah, and I'd grab it, and I'd run in the house, and put it in, and I would watch this stuff over and over and over. And sometimes it would only be a movie, but he was really cool. He'd always put another TV show in the end of the tape if it had a little bit of room. He'd put as much on as he could. And so there's all this secret stuff that would be on the end of the tape if he could get it on. And I was like, oh, God, this is excellent. So I started amassing a bunch of tapes through this club, and I was happy, really happy about that. And then in the summer of 88, something very cool happened. And this is a big changing of the guard, so to speak. So there was a club in Victoria on the island. I was sending my tapes to them, where all of a sudden it was announced, and this is before the internet. I forget. I went to a convention and I was told about it. Oh yeah, they're having this meeting. They're gonna create the Vancouver Japanese Animation Club, and again, one club. What ended up happening is, I went to this community college, and they had rented out a room. I'll never forget it. I was the youngest person in the room, and it was probably around 25 people. That was really it, for this group. And I remember sitting in all these chairs were set up, and I sat in the chair, and the president of the Victoria Japanese Animation Club, his name was Nicholas Conder, got up, and he did a great speech. And I remember thinking, this, you have to understand, I was a little kid with no confidence. So to watch, a guy who's like 27 stand up and start talking to a room full of people with such confidence, I was really inspired by it. I wasn't able to do that for quite a few years. But just to see him stand up there and say, listen, we've had the Victoria Animation Club. It's been going great for years. And now we're passing on the torch to the Vancouver Japanese Animation Club. And that is going to be run by William Chow. And that's when I first saw William Chow. And he stood up. And he went to the podium, and he was a man of few words, but he was a good speaker still in front of an audience. And he's like, yeah, we're going to start this club, and I got a lot of Japanese laserdiscs, and what we're going to start doing is translating all this stuff and subtitling it, and we're going to create a group just for subtitling. And it was like, wow, this is cool. And I thought, this is great that there'll be a place in Vancouver that I can just go and hang out and get tapes from. So now, it's kind of interesting at this point. The president of the Victoria Club kind of disappeared into, back to Victoria, and I never saw him again. He never came over to do functions in Vancouver, conventions or anything like that, because now there's a Vancouver club for that, and I never saw him again. But when I was 26 years old, actually I think I was about 27, I was able to track his number down. And actually, no, this is in 2000. I went to Anime Expo, and I ran into somebody who knew him. And I said, can I have his number? And he gave me his number. So I phoned him up, and I thanked him for taking the time when I was a younger kid to send me all those tapes, and it meant the world to me, and it really did a lot for my life. And I was so nice to be able to thank him on the phone as an adult all those years later. It was a really wonderful moment. That's something I'll never forget. But the Vancouver Japanese Animation Club was born, and William Chow was running it. And he was like the godfather of anime in Canada. He really, really was. He goes by the name of King of Smut 95 as well. That was his later name, because he collected so much hentai. That's another story for another time. But he did so much for the Japanese animation scene. I'm not going to call it Japanimation. I've just been funny there. But the anime scene in general. He did so much in Vancouver and for across Canada and for the United States. And we'll get to that. He created a group called Arctic Animation. And if any older members are watching, any older people are watching that watched anime back in the early 90s, and they had copies of tapes, it was usually from Arctic Animation. So William Chow, he was just like my guru. I looked up to him. He had all the laserdiscs from Japan. And laserdiscs were damn expensive. And he was collecting the entire TV series box sets. It was insanity. And then he would give it to this group, and he would help as well. And they all did it by hand. The subtitling and timing and all that. It wasn't all done digitally. It was all a very lengthy process. I don't know exactly all that process. Not nowadays, but I just know it was a very, very hard process. It was very time consuming. And it took a long time to do not only the translation, but add the subtitles and from the Laserdisc, and then onto VHS Master. So they were doing it for years, and they did so many TV shows. They did so much. And this is before anime was mainstream still. This is before anime was mainstream. So if you wanted a copy of a tape, you go to this group and they'd give you tapes. They'd copy tapes for you, and that's how you got it. But there wasn't really a time when you could really go and buy. The problem with buying official tapes, and there wasn't that many of them, the selection was terrible. You buy a tape with 2 episodes on, which were officially released, but they were $40 to $50 for an hour. That's what anime fans nowadays don't understand, because a lot of anime fans now, let's be honest here, just download the stuff. A lot. There's a lot of purists out there that just buy the Blu-rays and stuff. That's excellent too. But back in the days, that it was a very big financial investment to be into anime, as much as it is now. But I think it's become a little bit more tuned that you can just go, download my latest episode type of thing. But so they were doing it. There's a lot of great stories. I will brush on this one. The writers on Star Trek: The Next Generation were writing to our Vancouver group, asking for TV series. They were asking for this anime and this, because they were such fanatics of anime as well. This is a true story. William Chow still has all the letters from them, and he's not supposed to show them or anything like that, because back then they looked so terrible. The writers in Star Trek: The Next Generation are trying to get dubbed tapes of anime, but that was the scene. That's to show you that's what the scene used to be like. And so the club was like this for a very long time. And William Chow went and opened up an anime store, which was just a local hangout and a wonderful place to go, called Anime Janai. There was quite a few. There was about 4 locations in its time in Vancouver, and it really that was a great hangout. You got to go there, meet other fans, play PC Engine games, Neo Geo games, and get copies of tapes, pretty much. And you could really find out a series that you were really into. And this is what the culture was, and it went on that way for many years, for many years. And then Dragon Ball Z started, and Sailor Moon started. I'll never forget that generational start on television. I remember going, they finally get Dragon Ball Z on TV, and Sailor Moon's on TV now, and then Gundam Wing started. I remember there was a shift in fandom. And also it brought in a lot more brand new fans. As well as I saw when Final Fantasy VII came out and Ocarina of Time, it brought a whole different fan base. Before, it was kind of a very, very secretive group. Our main focus was we wanted the mass public, English-speaking public, to find out about Japanese animation. And all of a sudden, it started to become true. And all of a sudden, there started to become more DVDs. DVDs start to really take off on anime, and I started collecting Cowboy Bebop and Trigun and all this stuff. And we started to go into a different time, and then all of a sudden, the internet really was really kicking off. And all of a sudden, you could download anime. And that changed the entire playing field, even for clubs. So we had a store. We actually had monthly meetings to watch anime on the big screen down the road. It was awesome. But as soon as it became more mainstream and more easier to acquire anime, that you didn't need to be in a club anymore, the club took, I'd say, but it was a gradual. It didn't happen overnight. The clubs just started to subside. And the monthly meetings, showing anime on the big screen, that stopped. The anime store was eventually closed. All of that stuff stopped. Even the subtitling group had stopped. And before I knew it, a whole different generation of anime fans was there. And that's a great thing. It's become so mainstream now. And that's great. Be careful what you wish for. That's what we always wanted. And all of a sudden, that's what we had. And so what ended up happening was we didn't really need the Vancouver Japanese Animation Club anymore. It's not that we didn't need it. I always needed it. I always liked it. We didn't need one club anymore. All of a sudden, there started to be different clubs for different genres of anime. Before there was one that everybody went to. Guy, girl, didn't matter who you were. You all went to that club. Where now it's like certain groups of friends and genres would open up special clubs. And in Vancouver alone, I couldn't even tell you when there is an anime club, an anime convention now. And even the animation conventions are split up. You know, we can't even have one of those. Everybody's just all these different groups. Everybody's being split apart. And I think that's what upsets me now getting into... I mean, I'm just talking about my local scene. It's all being really split up, and I kind of miss the days when everybody was together for the one cause of anime, type of thing. But things change, and I'm totally willing to accept the changes. I'm not saying that, but it's interesting to see what has changed over the years, and anime is completely a different thing. And you know what was really sad? Oh God, I'm not trying to always end these episodes with like sad moments, but William Chow, the godfather of anime, who did so much for the scene. He did so much for the cause of anime. Had done so much in Vancouver. Was a legendary guy. It must have been in 2004, 5, 6, somewhere in there. There was an anime convention in town, and William was there, and he was trying to get rid of a bunch of his old tapes and stuff like that. And I remember reading on a message board afterwards. And some little brand new girl anime fan, who knows, probably 16 years old, has no idea about the history and what it used to be like. Was like, oh yeah, I thought the convention was really good, but yeah, it's kind of weird. There's some kind of old guy trying to sell tapes to different people, all that. And there's like, oh, little do you know about the godfather of anime, and you don't know who he was and what he did for anime fandom in Vancouver. It was legendary. And the funny thing is I always wanted to shoot a documentary on this entire subject. I really did. But, I interviewed a few people about coming on and doing that, and there was a couple, like the guy from Victoria. I'd written to him, and he'd never written me back. You just knew some people are afraid. They don't want to get on camera and do it. And that's what I'm talking about. My generation, as we hit our 40s, what we grew up with, there's nobody else talking about it. There's nobody else, they all have families, and they still feel persecuted from the 80s. They still feel ashamed of liking anime. There still is that stigma. There really is. And I find it interesting that it was like that, where it must be wonderful being a younger anime fan now growing up, and you can go to a store and buy soundtracks and all that kinds of stuff, and download your latest episode the day after it hits Japan. We were getting shows like years after they came out, and we were, oh my God, I always sound like an old man there. And we were lucky if we had them subtitled. I tell you, some of the things I watched on beta back in the day, like the screen would be wavy at times, and I could just make out the characters. There'd be no subtitles, and I thought it was great because it was all I had, and it's just fascinating. And that's what I wanted to talk about: the olden days of anime to anime now, and what has changed. And I remember even reading on a vintage anime club about some older guy. Felt like he'd gone to one of the local new clubs, and he said, I felt so embarrassed being there because everybody was so young, and I was like going, oh God, what am I even doing here? And I just want to say something here, not to be, but some of the older clubs, it didn't matter how young or old you were accepted as long as you're an anime fan, and you were treated all the same. It was really cool. Where now it's like that guy said, he said, I felt so weird. I'll never go to another club meeting. And that's also a thing. Things have changed. The clubs have changed. It's not, it's just the whole different cliques of anime groups, and there's so much different kinds of anime now. There always was, but now it's all segregated and different, and all that stuff. And also the internet links everybody in a totally different way, which something I appreciate, but I do miss the golden days of anime. And look at this. These are all the old fanzines I had from Vancouver. Used to be called Prototype. And the great thing is all the covers were done by fans of the group. They weren't all official artwork. They were just enthusiastic. All super enthusiastic about just being into anime, and just so wonderful. Just so wonderful. And it's just about sharing the love of, anime, and the style and the stories, and how it all affected us. And I still love anime to this day, and I love new anime as well, more than anything. But fandom has changed. And isn't that interesting? So, anyways, guys, until next time.